Jay-Z has filed a lawsuit against his rape accuser and her lawyers for malicious claims. But the accuser is standing by her story. Jay-Z's 25-page complaint points to allegations of extortion, even though the anonymous woman has withdrawn her lawsuit. She withdrew it last month. The woman, you may recall, accused both Jay-Z and Diddy of sexually assaulting her when she was just 13 years old. Jane Doe spoke to NBC News about her accusations.
I'm scared of what could happen, but I'm more afraid of letting it eat me alive from the inside out. I haven't asked for a dime from him. It's not everything is motivated by money, and I'm sorry that he feels that it is.
In his complaint, Jay-Z says his accuser, along with her attorneys, quote, were soullessly motivated by greed, in abject disregard of the truth and the most fundamental precepts of human decency. Oh, the complaint goes on to say the hip-hop mogul wishes to hold Doe accountable for her malicious prosecution of knowingly false allegations. Now, Jay-Z's complaint referenced his accuser as Jane Doe over 30 times. Now, we're asking, what questions do you have for Jane Doe? We still don't know who this woman is. Remember, she petitioned the court, and the court agreed she could keep her identity anonymous. What would you ask her if you had a chance to talk to Jane Doe? Let's bring in our power panel. Still with me, South Carolina solicitor Kevin Brackett. I want to welcome in the former co-host of the Hot 97 morning show, Lisa G, is here, and media personality and artist in his own right, Head Crack, is here as well. Great to see you all. Okay, ladies first. Lisa G, would you start off our conversation? What do you think about all of this, please?
Well, Jay-Z made it very clear that he was very upset about this and that it really affected his family and that he had kids that he had to discuss this with. And so it just sounds like he's coming down very hard and just showing her how angry he really was that this happened in the first place, that she filed a lawsuit. There were a lot of holes in her stories, and Jay-Z isn't going to stand for it. And Julie, he has a lot of money. So is she being intimidated? That's the big question.
Right, Lisa G, exactly. Great points. Head Crack, let me go to you next, please. What do you think as you're hearing this back and forth? And this is something, you know, I remember we talked about initially when it came out, it was stunning, and then more comes out and more comes out. And Jay-Z, boy, he is holding their feet to the fire.
He was very vehement, like when the accusations first came about that, hey, listen, this is ridiculous, and I'm going to make y'all look ridiculous at the end of the day. And here we are, you know what I'm saying, like a couple months later, and everything seemed real sketchy about her story to begin with. Her father couldn't corroborate the story. What is a 13-year-old doing at a VMA's after party? Nothing added up. And what people sometimes fail to realize is when you make accusations, right, even if the accusations turn out to be not true, that stain remains for a long time. It's like getting oil on your clothing. You can wash it out, but there's going to be remnants up there, and people are going to think about, you remember that one time that person had that accusation? You know, so at the end of the day, he has to make an example of this person, so maybe it'll stop other people from coming through bearing false witness in the future.
Yeah, great point, Head Crack. You know, and what's the ramifications? What are the ramifications of this? We're going to touch on that. I'm so glad you brought it up. In our next question for you all, Kevin Brackett, let me get your initial thoughts on the back and forth and this Jane Doe accuser. And if you could sit down with her, what might you want to ask her, Kevin?
Well, I mean, it sounds like a lot of questions have already been asked of her, and that's how her story started to unravel. You know, the devil's in the details in a 20-something-year-old case, because there's probably no forensic evidence that she's going to be able to provide that anything ever happened. So, you know, you're going to have to ask all the details. Who was there? Where was this? When did this take place? A lot of little small details which you can verify or not. And if you can't verify them, people you say were there were not even in New York, for example. That's the kind of problem that, you know, unwinds a case like this. And listen, this is a tragedy, really. It's horrible. It's horrible to be a victim of sexual assault. I've worked with many of them over the years, and it's a tragic occurrence in anyone's life. It is also horrible to be falsely accused of a sexual assault. That is, as the gentleman commented a moment ago, that's something that just lingers over you, and you can't ever erase it. The reality of it is, for Jay-Z, is that even if he's successful in his civil suit, what is he going to get from this woman? She probably has nothing. So it's not as if, you know, this is going to ruin her, because she probably doesn't have much to begin with. So it's terrible. You know, you hate for any sexual assault victim to have, you know, have their case taken not seriously because they think back to this woman. So it's just the ripple effects of an accusation that doesn't carry water are just terrible for everybody involved, including other victims in other cases unrelated.
Right. Great point. So you all are making such great points. And let's dovetail off of that, Kevin, what you just mentioned. So we know that this lawyer, Tony Buzbee, who filed this suit on behalf of this alleged victim, Jane Doe, he's filed many other suits. He's made some strong claims. So let's go back to his initial press conference. Take a look.
The biggest secret in the entertainment industry that really wasn't a secret at all has finally been revealed to the world. The wall of silence has now been broken, and victims are coming forward.
Okay, notice that he's got his phone number behind him as he's doing this press conference. It seems like this Texas lawyer has all these accusers flocking to him. It's fair to ask questions, right? Why this guy? Why now? Why so many? So let's talk about what impact is this, you know, what do we call it up? A mess, you know, this suit brought against Jay-Z, now dropped. He's suing them for what he says are false claims. How's this all going to impact the cases against Diddy? If there is something with merit, and again, we don't know. He's cloaked in the presumption of innocence as we get ready for that criminal trial happening, but the civil suits swirling around it certainly are making a difference here in the court of public opinion. Lisa G., let me go back to you.
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting, Julie, because in hip hop, there are rumors about personalities throughout the years. There have been rumors about Jay-Z, none of which have come true. But when I hear this, it just seems like he's angrier at the attorney than the accuser. Wouldn't you agree? That's what it sounds like to me, that he's trying to make a point.
Oh, yeah. I think he can't stand this attorney. I think Jay-Z loathes Tony Buzbee, you know, and look, if I was in Jay-Z's position and if I was falsely accused, I would too, right? If Jay-Z firmly believes that this guy has pushed forward false claims for a payday. Headcrack, let me go to you next. You touched on it in your first set of comments. What do you think the impact's going to be? Does this kind of make everybody want to question all the other suits this guy's filed?
I mean, I think as it relates to Diddy's case, if this trial was like a game of Uno, there are enough people holding draw fours to paint the picture that they want to paint of Diddy already. Like, you know, like this, even if 27 people made an accusation, and even if 4 of them actually turned out to be true, there's some merit here, you know, to go off on. And this guy has a lot of accusers to bob, weave, and fight against. Are all of them telling the truth? Time will reveal. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, if someone comes out and says that they're a victim, we do have to hear them out. But then when we hear them out, we find out that their stories have all types of holes in it, a mesh amount of holes, then all of a sudden, like, this does add a little bit of discredit to everybody else who might speak out. But you do have to hear everybody's story just in case someone is telling the truth.
It was so well said, Headcrack. Exactly. You know, you trust, you then verify, right? You're open to the story, and then the verification, the vetting process happens. Kevin Brackett, you know this all too well. You know, your office has its doors open for victims always, and then you verify the claims. I'm curious your thoughts as an attorney. What do you think happens with Tony Buzbee? You know, with this now big question mark over his head from the Jay-Z incident, do you think suddenly we're going to see pushback from all the other suits?
I don't know about that. Each case stands on its own, and the Diddy case seems to have a lot more circulating around it. You know, the thing that strikes me about Jay-Z's case is that prior to the filing of the suit, I'll bet you that there was probably an effort to reach out to see if he wanted to do a quiet settlement, like a demand letter or something like that. And I'm betting he said no. I've been involved in cases involving famous personalities who've come through my jurisdiction who were accused of something very similar, who did settle. And I didn't. I had my doubts about the accuser, but I recognize that they have to make this choice. Do I want this tarnish to my reputation, or should I settle for what they consider to be a relatively trivial amount of money? The fact that Jay-Z stood his ground and said, no, I'm not going to pay you a nickel, and then waited all the way through the lawsuit and ultimately having it withdrawn, shows that he was very determined to stand up for himself, and I respect that. But I think the two cases stand on their own, and the fact that Diddy's is a criminal case and that a prosecutor has evaluated it and tried to poke holes in it and check for these inconsistencies and still believes to this day that they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a much higher standard than they have to have in civil court, preponderance, leads me to conclude that there's probably more than just smoke in the Diddy case.
Oh, that's great. Perfect note to end on. I know we're going to be talking much more about the Diddy cases. We're getting ready. May, it's set to go this May. And of course, we want to have you all back when we get ready for that one. Lisa G. and Headcrack, we have to say goodbye to both of you. Thank you so much for making time for us, taking time out of your schedules to come on the program. We really appreciate it. And check out Headcrack's album, Microdose, out now.